Today we're headed out in the rollback, and we are going to go look at a rollback. Isn't that funny? Not a rollback truck, but just a rollback itself. You know, just a bed. The guy took it off his Kenworth, changed it over, built it into something else. So it's a little bit of a drive. We're going to get up here, get some fuel, and head across the countryside. Well, we are out there, man. We are so deep in the hills, they pipe in sunlight out here. Alright, so here we are. It's a 28-foot JERR-DAN bed, and it was removed from another truck. This was actually a backhoe hauler. That's what these are. They've got little wells in there where the backhoe wheels could sit down in their tires. It needs some work. It's going to need the cross members, but the mechanics of it are here. The cylinders are here, the I-beams here, the tilt cylinders are here, and it's pretty straight. It's 102 inches wide, so it's exactly what I need. It just needs all the cross members cut out and replaced, which is no small feat. But the wood's off of it, and I can get in there with a plasma cutter and get them out pretty easy. So it was asking a lot more than I was willing to pay. It's in a little worse shape than I thought, but we came to an agreement, so now we're going to load it up, and hopefully it's not too heavy for my poor little rollback. It's a wee bit longer. It turned around, it was too heavy on the tail end, so I got it on here. It's pretty close. Now we gotta go get the tank and the other brackets. We are all loaded finally. It took forever. Chain down, and we'll check our chains here in a little while when we get going down the road. So this is what I was talking about. I ran the chain through the bed, down through my bed stake pocket to my frame on 2 different spots on both sides, so it stops the bed from sliding forward or back, but it also holds my bed and this bed down. I climbed some of them hills coming out of there, and I was doing about 25 miles an hour by the time I got to the top of the hill. I don't know what it weighed, because she is heavy. Stop and check these chains again, just to make sure none of them come loose or nothing shifted. I was a little worried about this one. I got it sitting on timbers here, trying to get the weight right here at my leaf spring hanger, not on the tail end of my bed, because before I did that it had a pretty good bow to it, but it's all right now. It's like all my mud and dirt about fell off. Let's make sure she's tight. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah, we are good. All right, so we can head on down the road now. Well, we made it home just fine. So I'll have to unload it. I guess I'm going to set it on top of my other big rollback to get it out of the way. All right, so this is a JERR-DAN industrial. I think that's a 30,000 pound winch if I remember right. I don't think there's a tag on it up there. I'll have to look and see. I can't read the tag on it. I need to get something to clean it off. And this bed is 28 feet long, 102 wide, and the cross members are every 6 inches all the way front to back. That's why it's so heavy. And then there's this big piece of 3/4 inch strapping here that helps with strength as well, and it's welded at every cross member. So he wanted a fair price for it to begin with, and then when I showed up and I saw that the majority of the cross members are thin, and if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to cut them out and replace them all. Like, they don't look real bad in camera. Like back here they get kind of bad and got holes in them, but it was worth making a deal on. It's going to be a lot of work to put it back together, but it's definitely worth it. You can remove these, and there's a well down in there, so you can take a backhoe and put the back tires right there so it can get the height down. This is the slide assembly for the front locks, which we'll probably do something different there. But yeah, you can see most of these are okay. Like, you could probably get away with reusing them, but I just think that if I'm gonna redo it and the deck's off, why not just do it all? And here's the tilt cylinders for the front, and it's backwards right now. The tail part underneath has a lot of rust issues, so that'll all need cut apart and redone. But the main I-beams are still in pretty good condition. There's a few pieces of the sub-assembly that'll need repaired, but you know, this is probably a 30,000 pound capacity bed, and I've been looking for one of these to get ready to go on one of my trucks so that I don't have to beat down a truck to fix my other one. I want to make sure I still have one being able to be used. So I'll show you the undercarriage here. Here's a look at that tail piece. You can see everywhere it was encapsulated, it was trapped in salt water and rust, and so it'll need redone. When you look at the cross members down here, they're really not too bad. Like, they could probably be okay, and like that one's gonna blow through. I can see the rust jacking right there, but there's not many. This is that well for the tire, drops it down 4 inches. We'll probably do away with that. We don't need that. But you can see here the damage starts here, and you get 1, 2. This one's got a bunch of rust jacking ready to pop off. 3. This one's okay for whatever reason. 4, 5, 6. And then, you know, whichever ones would have holes in them after it was sandblasted, because this should probably be completely taken apart and sandblasted, then repaired and then painted. But you know, anytime you can find one of these heavy equipment hauler beds, this thing's 28 foot long. You know, they're not real easy to come by as far as made by JERR-DAN. I have another JERR-DAN that's 26 feet, but this one's, like I said, 28. So anytime I find one that's a reasonable amount of money, I want to go take a look at it and see if it's acceptable or usable, because I'd like to build one that'll be my, like, you know, forever truck. I'm not going to get rid of it, but I'd like to start with something that is adequate and going to suit me, my needs and all that. The next thing to do would be, I need to get our height down as low as we can. We just don't need this bed to be this high. And when JERR-DAN builds theirs with their sub-assembly here, you know, all this is on top of the factory frame. So you have all of this plus this height up above. So I'd like to find a way to get it down lower, but you can see that I-beam, that's got to be at least an 8-inch I-beam right there. So it's a pretty heavy bed. And like I kept saying on the way home, it was heavy. I could tell it was heavy. There's a couple of hills down there we pulled, and I was only doing 25 by the time I got to the top. But it's a good JERR-DAN bed. I think all the valves are, that one's a little sticky, but they're okay. You know, it's definitely a good base to start with. So worth the effort and the money. I think we made a decent deal on them. I mean, used, I find these beds often for around 10,000 bucks. So if I find anything that's less than that, I definitely want to go look at it. So we made a deal. Next we'll have to, you know, get ready to do some work to it. I took the old hinge from assembly from the back. It's really not worth anything. I just wanted to see how they had it designed on theirs, which I think I'll do probably something a little heavier. It has a really heavy mount back here for a pintle hook and a 2-inch receiver, but the idea would be to do away with this rear stabilizer, because the way this thing works is that stabilizer comes down and you can slide the bed back, or you can, you know, raise the back of the bed to get it at dock height. So if you want to load a forklift off a dock or something. So I don't necessarily need that. It also has tilt cylinders that go up here. So instead of running tilt cylinders up there, right, and then these back here, what I'd like to do is build an underreach, because the truck frame The old pivot was right here, so if we could move that back as far as we could, get the back of the truck frame, you know, put our axles back as far as we can. I'd like to remove the stabilizer setup and replace it with a underreach. It's going to be long because it'll have to be pivoted way up underneath here, right? And it's going to have to come way out here past this tailboard. So we're talking, you know, 8 feet of tube here before we extend anything. But I want to see if that's possible. And then I don't need the wrecker and a rollback. I could do it all one. It would be kind of like a NRC 40TB, only, you know, our version. I just need to find a way to get this thing lower. You know, these are 4-inch channel cross members, and that's I-beam sitting above this 8-inch channel here, or this box tube. So anything I can do to get this height down would be very, very helpful. But I'm pretty happy with the purchase, and once we start doing some work on it, we'll bring you guys along. It ought to be pretty interesting because it'll probably be a full custom build. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it's going to look like. So this is one of the trucks I was considering putting that rollback on. It's my 89 Kenworth K100E, and I would like to change the front springs, and I'll probably have to move the hanger, I think, on the rear, and move that axle forward and go ahead and cut this out. So it'd be a, you know, set forward axle instead of that slight bit of setback. And then I'd also, to put that bed on here, I need 20 feet from right here back of frame. So I would probably go ahead and cut the frame, splice onto it and double it. And then that'd also give me the opportunity to get rid of the slipper spring suspension, that Rayco suspension that I don't want. And I could go with a better rear end ratio. I don't remember what the ratio was of this. This truck's a big cam Cummins and a 9-speed, I believe. But I could go to something like a 308, or I don't know, somewhere around there, somewhere in the low 3s, so that I could go with a much smaller height tire and get my deck height down, and we could lower the front end as well, get it down as low as we can, because I'm always fighting height on these rollbacks for what we need to do. So again, we'd be able to stretch it, we'd be able to go to a better rear end ratio, and we go to smaller tires, and then we could drop the front end down here. We're sitting in I brought this in when the ground was pretty soft, but we can move this axle forward, take that spacer block out, go to air right on the front and help out a little bit, and then doll this one up, and that would be a great rollback. I'll show you the other ones I'm considering. I bought this truck at the same time as a pair from one owner, and this one's a parts truck. It's what they've been using it for. It's still a K100 setback axle on the front, and if we use this one, we would obviously move that axle forward. And then it's got an 8-bag suspension on the rear, which I don't want. I don't care for 8-bag, but we could easily cut the frame in this area, splice on our 20 feet we need, simply because you can see we got some rust pitting here. I mean, it's nothing we couldn't overcome, but at the same time, if you're going to do it, you know, it's a good time to take advantage and fix everything you can. And then I can go with a lower numerical number on the rear ends to get us on a much lower, shorter tire, and that'd be okay with me. The nice thing about using a cab over is just this. If you figure where your hood would be, and it comes back into this area, and then your cab, you're about the same length, but the difference is that would be a day cab, and these are both sleeper trucks. When I bought these two trucks, my original intention was wrecker and rollback, so I'd have matching K100s. I want to be no more than 40 feet total with the underreach, if I can do it underreach. Now I'll show you another truck I might be able to do. All right, so this truck is an 9200i International. It's got a let's see, 3406 cat. It's got a 10-speed or 9-speed, one or the other, and it's already set up with this massive frame here. and it's got this lift axle, and this frame has been stretched at one time, but it's done very well. The ratio on these rear ends would allow me to go to a smaller tire and not sacrifice too much speed, because this thing will haul the mail. It's geared right, but it's also got the lift axle. It's also ready to go, and this bed is 24 feet long. So if you look here, I've only got about, I'd say 3 feet past the rear, so I would be able to do what I wanted to do with that bed on this truck. It's just nowhere near as attractive of a build as the Kenworths would be. The cab overs, I think those would be much more interesting, and end up with a much nicer truck than this. I mean, these are okay. I like Internationals, but you know, they are what they are. And again, we'd need to drop this down low, because we would basically be the same height as this, which is just too high, just way too high for us. So we'd have to get it down, and I'm okay with that. And we may need to use that lift axle, or maybe a steerable lift axle I have off another truck, and put on the Kenworth for the rollback to use the full capacity. I have to see how it lays out. But let's look at one more option I have. Bought this truck from a fleet company, and it's got this steerable lift axle. It needs sandblasted, repainted, probably needs kingpins and what have you, but it's a good 14,000 pound, I think, steerable lift axle. So that may be an option to use on one of them as well. All right, so this is my 90 Peterbilt 379. It is a Big Cam Cummins 9-speed on Peterbilt air leaf suspension. This truck runs and drives well. It needs some maintenance and changes to make it what I want, but as far as you know, the driveline parts, it's actually in pretty good shape. What this truck was a road tractor. Frame's been stretched already. Did a nice job. I was happy with that. The bed that's on it is 26 feet long. From the front of the bed to the bumper is 11 feet. So what that means to us is, in Ohio, I can be 40 feet long total length. So if we're at, you know, 26 and 11, that's 37 feet. The bed I bought yesterday is 28 feet. So I'm adding 2 feet to it, so that puts me at 39 already. And I'd like to have an underreach, and if that underreach, when it's in a stowed position, only sticks out a foot, that would be great, and we're okay if it's only a foot. So in that respect, this truck is okay, but I don't know if it's the best option, because, you know, having the conventional hood, yeah, it's a 379, and we all love them and love the way they ride, love the way they look and all that. But by having that tilt hood and the engine able to get exposed like that to work on with the conventional hood, we have, you know, this cab here. It's a standard cab. I don't have enough room for a sleeper to add, and the idea is to build something we can travel in and go pick stuff up, or go to truck shows or whatever, and avoid hotels and all that kind of stuff, and have a place to put some bags and maybe a cooler and all that. So in a cab over, by moving that cab forward, this space here that used to house the motor now is giving us a sleeper, which is very attractive to me. And in this truck, it has a Peterbilt air leaf suspension, which, you know, they're okay. I don't have any complaints about it in general, just the fact I think there's better options for a better ride. So this one, the leaf spring, even though it's an airbag, it still has kind of a leaf spring. It comes from that mount over top of that axle, drops slightly, and then has a short airbag. So the Peterbilt low leaf, which is the one I like better, comes over the axle, drops down quite a bit, and gives you a place for a much taller airbag, which means you have more travel. I think they ride better. I like the ride of those better than these. The guys I know like the air leaf and the 8 bags for heavy hauling. You have a short bag, reacts well, you're not blowing them out. But if I have to, I'd like to move the axles back as far as I can and manipulate that bed so that we can be able to get that underreach as close to the rear axle as possible, so it's not hanging way out there. You know, that'll take some re-engineering and design on whatever rollback I use, and that's okay. And it'll change the pitch angle and how far the bed comes back, the approach angle while we load. But for what we do with it, it's not going to make a difference. Now, because of Ohio's bridge laws, these two axles, 20,000 pounds each, they're only going to let us put, I think it's 34,000 on them. The front axle is a 12,000, so I'll overload that very easily the way this is set up, because we'll end up rolling a semi or whatever truck on here, and the front of it will be in this area right here, and it's, you know, we're past the center of the duals, so we're going to be putting a lot of weight on there, and we don't have that much weight to really work with, so that we'll have to put a lift axle in this area, which I have no problem with at all. We have plenty of options, but it doesn't give us the ability to run a sleeper unless I use a really one of the shorter beds. I now have a 30 foot on my big Freightliner, the one's a 30,000 pound capacity. It is a lead well. I have a 28 foot lead well as well, and then I bought that 28 foot JERR-DAN yesterday, and I have a 26 foot JERR-DAN, and I have a 21 foot on another truck, and I have a 26 foot on my little blue one. That's a JERR-DAN as well. I believe the bed I've researched, I think it's called a Super Series bed. It's a 15-ton bed, 20,000 pound winch. But by putting it on this truck, I can only be that 40 feet. This may not be the ideal situation for what we want to build. So if I take that second cab over, that's actually a parts truck, you know, by cutting the frame off and stretching it or replacing the frame or whatever it is we would do, I've actually repaired a problem with a change that I want to make anyways. On regardless what truck we use, I'm using a different suspension. So by doing that, if I could buy a cutoff, or I could just buy frame rails, 40 foot long frame rails, you know, we could just build the truck from beginning, from scratch rails, not have a bunch of extra holes in it. But we could work on that. But that cab over is a parts truck. The engine needs work. Well, I have an N14 mechanical with a 9-speed that I could put in there. It runs beautiful, and I would take that over a low flow big cam Cummins any day. I don't mind that at all. So that might be an option, but a lot of times it's not about what truck I think would be the neatest or the coolest or I'd like the best. It's about the one that suits the best and utilizing what we have to make the money right. Now, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you start with that truck that, you know, when I bought that pair, the majority of my money was spent on, you know, the one that ran and drove, which was the first one. It wasn't on the parts one, but that could make me a really, I could be in that right. I could have all the mechanicals done, have a really nice truck, and be in it right at the money, and utilize what would be a parts truck just because of the changes I need to make. So a lot of times it's about the best truck suited for your application, not what you like the best. And that's where we're at. But, you know, this would be a good option. I have a 26 foot rollback we could put on this as well. The thing is, I have to get the height down. So you have to keep in mind also that when you go from, these are 24.5 tires. So 24.5 tires, and that one's flat, of course. 24.5 tires have a rating of this. 11R 22.5s have a rating of this. 295, 75 22.5s, and then low profile that I want to use are even lower. So I have to keep that in mind to be able to use the full capacity of the deck. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into it beyond just, okay, I like that truck, let's put a bed on it. You know, it's a lot of figuring on what is best, what isn't. I have a couple more cab overs. I've got a International Day Cab 9670 cab over. That one's got a, I believe it's an L10. And this one is a GMC Astro sleeper truck with a, I believe it's an 8V92 two-stroke Detroit in it. But you know, these are not options right now. They're okay, but they're not what I want to consider. They need more than I really want to go into. But anyways, I got one more that the number's right on the truck the way I bought it, the way it's set up. It's already got PTOs on it, which is attractive. But I don't think it's the right truck, but I'll show you why. All right, I'm not going to show you that other truck because I've just decided I wouldn't be happy with that as a build, and I'd want to sell the truck. So I came back to this one, so I want to make sure that my thinking was correct. So I measured from the farthest most point on the front all the way to the back of the cab here, and my Peterbilt was 11 foot, which 11 foot puts us just past here, just about 4 inches past this electric or this manual. It's air with a manual backup. we'd probably do away with that. I've seen where they come out with an electrical hydraulic 12 volt with a manual backup, so we could do away with that. So my thought was, this truck is most attractive because the changes that what the repairs this truck needs are also the changes we'd be making to most every truck that we're talking about. I don't want an 8-bag suspension. I believe there's better suspensions out there. I believe they have a lot of moving parts and they're not cheap to maintain. So I would change it out to something else. Anyways, the frame rails I'd have to stretch, so the frame's kind of thin. I guess it's not thin, it's just pitted is what it really is. It's got some pitting where the fifth wheel sat, the original fifth wheel. So you know, this frame could be, I could double this frame and then stretch it on beyond, just put a liner in where my lift axle would go in this area, and you know, go ahead and put a liner inside, or new frame rails or whatever. But I have a motor, I have a transmission, I don't have a cutoff that I can think of right now, but I may have, and I just don't remember. It needs tires, which we would be changing the tires on whatever truck we use to go to the lowest profile we can find. So you know, we're not hurting anything. I mean, we're really taking a parts truck and putting it back to life, which I think is fantastic. You know, we'd probably have to I'd take the cab off and get it into the paint shop and have them go over the whole entire body and paint it, unless we paint it. But you know, we need 20 feet from basically this point, and I don't know what that is, but that ain't 20, and I just broke my tape measure, so I can't measure it again. But that's probably, I'm guessing, 10 feet about. So we're 10 feet shy. But regardless, this is the one I'm leaning towards. The interior in this thing is still nice. It's button tuck. Let's see if I can open it up here. The hinge is a little, yeah, you can see it's still, it needs cleaned badly. You know, it's been sitting for quite a while, but it's all brown button tuck. It's actually pretty nice interior still. So this would definitely make a good possibility. And you know, it's got a nice chrome bumper. I'm surprised. Anyways, that's one I'm leaning towards. You guys leave in the comments which one you vote for. That one I was thinking maybe instead of stretching it and putting a wrecker bed on it, I would just build a fifth wheel wrecker unit, leave it as a road tractor, so I have road tractor to haul a lowboy. Yeah, because we're looking for a lowboy right now. And have the fifth wheel wrecker unit as well, and be able to pull a gooseneck on that truck. So just have the two cab overs. That's what I was thinking. So leave in the comments which one you vote for, but I'm thinking this is the one we're going to do.